NBA free agent frenzy. Free agency officially kicks off in 11 minutes at 6 p.m. Eastern time. There's already at least, conservatively, 15 deals that are signed. I think it's safely 20 deals that are agreed upon at this present point. One of them is likely, maybe unfortunately to you, maybe fortunately to you, Fred VanVleet to the Houston Rockets. And again, you can have your reservations about Fred as a point guard. Losing him for free is a problem, regardless of your opinion. Okay? You want to start fresh. I get it. It's better to start fresh by trading him in a year's time because the team clearly wants to be competitive this season. And losing him for free would be gross mismanagement of assets. Fred VanVleet is reportedly currently in a meeting with Toronto about his future. Do you think Fred is a real point guard? I mean, the definition is hazy of a real point guard. I think he's a point guard. I wouldn't play him as a shooting guard unless I had a big point guard. Like if I had Doncic as my point guard and I could have Fred play off him at the 2, then I guess so. But Fred's a point guard. I mean, his playmaking took a jump last year. It was excellent by all metrics, and it improved immensely with Pirtle. And I think it'll be even better with Darko Rajakovic as a coach. There was a video today I retweeted. It was highlights from Fred in Game 6 of the NBA Finals when he was just spectacular as he helped the Raptors win the championship. And the comments were because obviously the video was praising Fred VanVleet for his time in Toronto, but the comments were like, well, if he wants to go back to this 6-man role, which best suits him, and we're 4 years off of that. He has grown and improved as a player since then. So he's obviously not going to be a 6-man for this team right now. He's a freaking all-star last year, right? Oh, and it's... Wow. Oh, man. I mean, that's it, guys. The Fred VanVleet era in Toronto is over. 3-year, $130 million contract. Wow. I mean, I didn't even want to give him 4 years, 130, and they gave him 3 years, 130. Not really anything the Raptors can do about this one. Fred VanVleet has joined the Houston Rockets, and the fact of the matter is they got priced out of this one. Wow. It's a sad day for Toronto sports, but ultimately, what this screams to me is that the Raptors were firmly in play. Fred wanted the long-term deal. Fred wanted the 3-4 year deal with the Raptors. He wanted the 4-year deal with the Raptors. And Houston had the 2-year deal on the table. And when it just looked like Fred was leaning towards the Raptors, Houston stepped up their offer. And they're giving him $43.3 million a year. The Raptors just could not compete with that. The Raptors just could not compete with that. So it's sad. This is a tough day for the Raptors. This is really a tough day for the Raptors. Raptors could never have matched it. There's nothing we could have done about it today. But it certainly makes you think about the decisions that led up to this point and the way they handled this season. I mean, for Houston, I don't like this deal. The 2 years made sense. Just 2 years help bridge you over with your young players. But I'm not going to think about it from Houston's perspective. So this is safely a top 10 Raptors player of all time. This is safely a top 10 Raptors player of all time. This is a guy who was a major contributor to the 2019 championship. This is a sad day here, but holy shit. $43 million a year. Fred VanVleet is handed the first max contract of the summer. What can you do? As a Raptors fan, what can you do about this? Shout out to Clutch Sports. Shout out to Fred VanVleet. He has gone from an undrafted free agent to a max contract player. So as far as my admiration for Fred and his journey on a personal level, complete shout out to him. This is an astonishing contract and a life-changing contract seemingly for Fred VanVleet. $43 million for 3 years. $43 million a year. From a Raptors perspective, as far as that value goes, there was absolutely nothing we could have done to match that salary. That is far too much. Far too much money for Fred VanVleet. The problem maybe is at this point, it's 8:48 p.m. Eastern time. That's a lot of money. But it's 8:48 p.m. Eastern time. The Raptors have made a commitment to being competitive this season. And the signing of Jakob Poeltl, great deal for the Raptors. 4 years, $80 million. Great deal for the Raptors. The signing of Jakob Poeltl made it clear that this team has an intent on being competitive this season. I don't think this is going to change that. I believe this team is still going to remain competitive for this season. But trying to be competitive is going to become a much more difficult task now that Fred VanVleet is gone. So the decision now is going to be, how do you replace him? I don't know what the situation was as far as Gabe Vincent or Javon Carter went, but the Raptors have no suitable point guard right now to start. You could say Scotty Barnes starts, but like point guard, but that's shoehorning him into that role. This team needs an actual point guard who can space the floor. This is a big loss. Financially speaking, some money opens up, but Gabe Vincent is on the Lakers now. Javon Carter is on the Bulls. DiVincenzo's available. Maybe you can trade for Tyus Jones or for Marcus Morris, but this is putting us in a difficult spot, a very difficult spot here. I don't think the Raptors should have matched this. I don't think we should have gone anywhere near this, but it makes you question the decisions that ultimately led up to this point. How at the trade deadline, you couldn't get any value out of him and couldn't trade him and pivot in a different direction. And now you're in a tough spot here where you need to find a point guard. And your team is going to suffer as a result of this decision. And if your team suffers, what's going to happen next with Siakam, who is extension eligible but will likely not sign one because he wanted to wait to the end of the season to see his free agent value? What will happen with OG Anunoby, who's extension eligible, max of 26.7, who just saw Bruce Brown get 22.5, who just saw Cam Johnson get 27? OG's going to want 30 plus. So now, I like the Connor Tom Duke there. All the wishes. Now what? This team wants to be competitive. This team wants to make the playoffs, for better or for worse. That's what it is. Regardless of who you sign to fill in the void at point guard, that player is not going to be as effective as Fred VanVleet. You could look at D'Angelo Russell. You give up a lot of decision making. You give up a lot of defense. D'Angelo Russell can't play defense. You go to DiVincenzo, you give up a lot of offense, you give up a lot of playmaking. If you go with DiVincenzo, that's a downgrade. You make a trade for Tyus Jones, Monte Morris, you got to give up assets to make it happen, but at least, those are solid players to fill in. So we'll bounce back. I don't want to sound overly pessimistic. Maybe I could keep myself in check. The comment there from Raps helps me. But this is tough. It's difficult to lose a player who has meant so much to the team, who, really embodies what the Toronto Raptors are all about. He was undrafted free agent, worked his ass off to prove that he was NBA caliber, then proved that he was starting caliber, then proved that he was all-star caliber. And now, whatever reservations you have against Fred VanVleet, whatever beef you have with his game, people who say that Fred isn't a leader, isn't a good player, selfish, shot chucker. I'm not saying he's worth this much money, but the Houston Rockets saw enough in this player to give him a max contract, $43 million a year. So don't give me this no value player. Don't give me this $20 million player. Don't give me this six-man caliber player. He just got a max contract. So if the Houston Rockets can understand how important he might be to their rebuilding team, surely you as a fan of the Raps can understand how important Fred VanVleet could have been to this team. I'm not saying he's a $43 million player, but maybe he was a $30 million player and he's worth giving that for the Raptors. The fact that Houston had to upgrade to a 3-year instead of a 2-year would suggest that he wanted to stay in Toronto. He had the inclination to stay in Toronto and stay for their deal. And it was such a pressure situation that the Raptors put on this whole thing that Houston upgraded their offer. So it looked like Fred VanVleet was going to be loyal, but only loyal to a certain extent. And to that, for this amount of money, to this level of financial compensation, I cannot blame him in the slightest. This is bad, man. Another player leaves for free. This is a horrible mismanagement of the situation. Say what you want, like you couldn't have kept him with that money. You guys want to see him gone. If you wanted to see him gone, the best thing to do would have been to trade him, not to let him walk away in free agency. This is another bad blemish on the Raptors front office. Trust in Masai. Trust what we lost. We lost a max contract caliber player, quotations, for nothing. For nothing. It ain't about saying we're better off without him. If that's the case, you should have traded him. You lost him for free. The team, the management, bet on this core. They lost. They lost, and they have continued to lose. And with this decision, with this day, I think they continue to lose going forward. It's only going... I cannot see this situation improving us. I cannot see a way this is better for us than if we kept him or if we traded him. I cannot see it. After I got told that nobody would want him, nobody wants Fred VanVleet, nobody would be interested in him. He just signed a fucking 3-year max contract. We got nothing out of a player of that valuation. A guy was an all-star a year and a half ago, not even a year and a half ago, left the team for free. That is a problem. That is a problem. And if you can't understand that,